Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this travel presentation. Oh, let's see here. Oh, no, I guess not. Sorry about that. Okay, all right. If you haven't joined us before, I'm Regina Cross and I direct the travel program, and I've been directing it for more than 20 years. And it's our longstanding travel program, which we offer educational travel opportunities to our alumni and friends of the university. Before we get started, if you could keep muted throughout the program, at least during the presentation, just a little bit of noise will pick up easily on the microphone. So I appreciate it if you keep yourself muted. If you have questions during the presentation, you can either include them in the chat and then we'll address them at the end. Mike will answer those once he's finished with the presentation. Also, the session is being recorded. And so if for some reason you've missed something, I will be sending the link out for the recording once it's been edited. All right. So on to our featured speaker today. We have Mike Maglione. He's the Senior Director of Business Development at GoNext. And GoNext has been a leader in alumni and group travel for 50 years. And they specialize, as I mentioned, in ocean and river cruises. Our relationship with GoNext has spanned more than 15 years, and I've worked with Mike many of these years. So welcome, Mike. It's on to you.
Thank you, Regina. Happy New Year to everyone. Hope your New Year started off on the right foot. And as Regina said, in our industry, nowhere to go but up after a couple rough years. As Regina mentioned, in 2023, GoNext will be featuring programs, both blue water, ocean water going cruises, European river cruises, as well as domestic river cruises as well. All of our Oceana or ocean going vessels are casual open seating dining, private dining, as well as they have private restaurants on board at no additional cost. We have several vessels that we'll be featuring today, including the new Vista, which is launching this year. Note that all Oceana pricing does include airfare from 90 major cities, includes your transfers to and from the airport, as well as your choice of select short excursions, a shipboard credit or beverage package. So when you're looking at these prices, they're fully inclusive, not counting gratuities and miscellaneous expenses, basically. Our featured programs begin with our Taste of the Caribbean program. This is a program that actually Regina will be hosting, and I know it's only a couple weeks away. But as I talk about these programs, we're literally doing very comparable programs in 2024. So I'll mention those as well. This program departs the end of this month, January 28th, on the Oceana Serena, Panama City to Miami. We spend a full day in Panama City on the vessel. We also have a nice pre-trip in Panama, outside of Panama City, in a resort before, if you choose to do so, before embarking the ship. We transit the canal, and then we go up the coast to Cartagena, into a couple Caribbean ports of call, ending in Miami. Highlights, of course, include Panama City, the transiting of the canal. During the canal, it's a daylight transit. There'll be a narration on board. I highly recommend the book Path Between the Seas by David McCullough, which is a great biography of the canal and the history of the canal. Obviously, the highlights are going through the locks and just learning of the history of what it entailed to build this at the turn of the last century. Of course, Cartagena, coming into some of the other islands, Aruba, and then, of course, Grand Cayman into Miami. It's a great way to start your year in heading out of the cold weather of the Northeast down into the Caribbean. Our next trip is the Kiwi and Aussie Explorer. This is a Australia-New Zealand program. This particular program starts in Auckland, and we cruise the North and South Islands of New Zealand before going over into Tasmania and then into Australia, ending in Sydney. A comparable program is going to be, this is a January 30th of this year, but a comparable program will be February 7th of 2024, where we'll do the same itinerary in the opposite direction, Sydney to Auckland. Highlights, of course, include Auckland, the Bay of Islands. Obviously, the natural history in this part of the world is beautiful. We'll cruise the Milford Sound, one of the most scenic fjords in the world. We'll go over to Burnie, Tasmania, before spending 2 full days in Melbourne and ending in Sydney. And again, a comparable trip. And all these trips are also available. The 2024 trips, the comparable trips are also available on the website as well. Our next program is Tahitian Legends, which is a round-trip Papeete program departing March 27th. A comparable departure will be January 29th of 2024. As I mentioned, round trip to Papeete, with highlights being Moorea, Raiatea, Bora Bora, Nuku'higa, and back to Papeete. Obviously, Tahiti is well known for the thatch roof huts that dart out into some of the bays and several of the islands. Again, the natural beauty and the waterfalls of Raiatea really highlight that itinerary, and very casual atmosphere. Our Blossoming Japan program is a cruise, not a complete circumnavigation, but almost complete of Japan, including Busan, South Korea. This is April 11th of 23. I'm sorry. A comparable program called Land of the Rising Sun will operate in March of 2024. Very comparable in itinerary. Round trip Tokyo with stops in Yokohama, Osaka, Kochi, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. And again, the culture of Japan, the meld of the old and the new architecture. Obviously, we go around the cherry blossom season in early April, so the cherry blossoms are beautiful. The whole historical aspects and the natural beauty of Japan are sights to behold. Obviously, the cherry blossoms a highlight as well. We really do focus on some of our most popular destinations being in the Mediterranean. We do various iterations of Mediterranean cruises, this being one of our highlights, which is our Picturesque Med program, which is Venice to Barcelona. We start in Venice and we go down the Dalmatian coast, a couple Greek islands up the coast after visiting Sicily, up the coast of the Amalfi Coast into Rome, the French Riviera into Barcelona. A comparable program will be in April of 2024, which is the opposite direction, Barcelona to Venice. As I mentioned, highlights include Venice, the Grand Canal, the Dalmatian coast, into Greece, the Amalfi Coast, of course, Rome, the Spanish Steps, and ending in Barcelona, in the Gaudi's church, the Familia. Domestically, we're doing a paddle boat cruise on the American Queen down the Mississippi from Memphis to New Orleans. This is pretty much a standard trip we do every year. In 2024, in April of 24, we'll be doing the same trip in the opposite direction, New Orleans to Memphis. Highlights include, obviously, Memphis, utilizing the American Queen. It's the only authentic steam-driven paddle boat in the world. There's a lot of paddle boats out there, but this is the only one that has true steam engines. So 420 passengers, has a combination of authentic and replica antiques on board. And it also travels with its own set of motor coaches that look similar to the ship with the shrunk wrap looking on the side there. But what's nice about it is every port you come to, these motor coaches will rotate between different sites on what they call hop on, hop off excursions, and they're complimentary, and you get a narration on the motor coach, and then you stop off at 3 or 4 different sites in the city. and you can stay every 20 minutes and get back on the coach or wait for the next coach to come. So you kind of can control your own schedule. People love them because you can go at your own pace. The American Queen, as I mentioned, the Mark Twain Gallery is a nice example of the decor on board. The Grand Saloon, which is a replica of Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C., with a balcony, and this is where lectures are done, with the shows are done, where receptions are held as well. We also have a ladies' parlor, the GM White dining room, which is a floor-to-ceiling dining room that's a replica of the GM White steamboat of the 1900s. And of course, starting in Memphis, you have Beale Street, you have Sun Records, Graceland. There's a lot of options in Memphis. As we cruise down the Mississippi, perhaps visit a few of the antebellum mansions, and ending in New Orleans. In May of 23 will be our inaugural cruise on Vista, which is the new Oceana vessel. It's a 1,200 passenger vessel with 6 alternative dining restaurants in addition to the grand dining room. Again, these restaurants are you just make reservations like you would normally, and you can free of charge set these restaurants up, or you can enjoy the full service buffet or the grand dining room, which are open seating with no assigned seatings and no times. This particular itinerary is Athens to Istanbul, so we'll get a good feel for both the combination of the Greek and Turkish Isles. Here's a few pictures, renderings of the Vista, obviously a very contemporary vessel with the contemporary architecture, grand dining room, the pool deck, the piano lounge, obviously very well pointed. Nice color, soft tones. As mentioned, start in Memphis, opportunity to visit the Acropolis, over to Santorini in the beautiful colors of the Santorini over the Mediterranean, into Ephesus, the Library Celsus here as we visit Ephesus, out of the port of Kusadasi, and then into Istanbul to visit the city on the Bosphorus with the Blue Mosque, Topkapi Palace, and the famous Topkapi dagger. Another domestic trip will be in June of 2023. And this is a standard as well. We'll go from Portland to actually Clarkston, Washington, and fly out of Spokane on the American Empress. It's a 205 passenger paddle boat. It goes through the Columbia River Gorge with some, again, same concept with the motor coaches that travel with the vessel, although it's smaller than the American Queen. We'll start in Portland, Multnomah Falls in Portland, and a couple other sightseeing opportunities before we embark on the vessel and we go through the Columbia River Gorge. The observatory here, built in 1923. It's a beautiful view of the gorge. We'll visit the Discovery Center at the Dalles, which is a port on the river. And there's really a proliferation of wineries now in this area, where 15, 20 years ago, there weren't many. There's a whole cottage industry now of good wines coming out of this region, with over, I think it's 200 wineries now in both Oregon and Southern Washington. In the summer, we'll do a circumnavigation of Ireland, our Irish Inspiration program on Riviera. This is a round-trip Belfast program. Obviously, flying to Belfast, we'll have a pre and Belfast if you want to spend some time there. County Cork, in the pastel-colored little residences that dot the shoreline. Of course, the topography of Ireland is always interesting and beautiful. Causeway, which is always a sight to see outside of Belfast. Again, great food and great scenery. Our Icons of Sweden and the Baltic Sea is a London to Copenhagen program. Typically, this is a standard itinerary with St. Petersburg, which is always a highlight. Obviously, we won't be going to St. Petersburg in 23 or soon thereafter. Starting in London, the Gothenburg into Kiel Canal, come up to Stockholm, Helsinki, visit the Baltic countries of Estonia, Latvia, and then into Poland, ending in Copenhagen. Obviously, London Bridge, Stockholm with a ship will dock in the city center, access to the Nobel Prize Hall, as well as the Vasa Museum, which is a Swedish galleon that sunk in harbor, and I just raised it and built a museum around it, much like a best description is a Pirates of the Caribbean type ship. Very interesting. On to Helsinki and the famous railway station designed by Saarinen. And a visit, as I mentioned, the 3 Baltic countries with the onion-shaped spires, and Copenhagen. The domestic program is our Majestic Great Lakes program. Departing Toronto, August 15th to Chicago. We spent a full day in Toronto at a hotel, which is included before embarking on the Navigator. It's a nice vessel. It's 100 passengers. Again, open seating in the dining room. Nice top deck for private receptions, for group receptions, what have you. They also have a restaurant upstairs with a buffet off the top deck as well. A nice bar and cocktail area as well. Starting in Toronto, of course, the highlight will be navigating the Whaling Canal and coming into Niagara Falls, and down to Cleveland. Detroit, which is very familiar to folks in Michigan. Of course, the Mackinac Island and the Grand Hotel, always a highlight. And then down to Chicago, where we'll disembark at the Navy Pier. The Greek and Turkish Wonders is an Istanbul to Athens program, very similar to the June program, visiting a combination of the Greek and Turkish Isles on the Nautica. Again, starting in the Bosphorus, going down to Ephesus out of Kusadasi, into Bodrum, Santorini, and Athens. Our Radiant Spain and Italy is our Barcelona to Rome program. So basically a Western Med program, highlighting the Mallorca and some of the island ports, in addition to some of the coastal ports along Marseille, of course, Monte Carlo, Portofino, Livorno, which are the ports for Florence, Pisa, and Tuscany, and Rome. Again, the architecture in Barcelona, we'll do a pre-trip to Barcelona, visits to Marseille, of course, Monte Carlo, the famed casino. The coast of Italy, into Florence, or Livorno, or Pisa. Of course, highlight in Rome is visiting the Trevi Fountain, and we never can have enough med. And then we take another basic aspect of the Mediterranean, which is just basically a circumnavigation of Italy, called Gladiator Gondolas, which is Rome to Venice. So we kind of take advantage of some of the Adriatic, access to the Adriatic, and visiting the Greek Isles, Montenegro, the Dalmatian coast, the Dubrovnik, and of course into Venice. As I mentioned, there's the first 7 programs in 2023. We're doing very similar, if not these same programs in 2024. So if any of these 23 programs are you can't schedule them, you might want to go to the website to see the comparable programs for 2024. And then there's 3 new programs that we'll be introducing in 24. One is the Jewels of the Rhine, which is on the new Emerald Dawn, which is an Zurich to Amsterdam program on the Rhine. Another is the Autumnal Allure, which is a New York to Montreal fall foliage program in September on Oceania Insignia. And then a new program on the Ocean Victory, which is a coastal cruiser that will ocean-going cruiser that of 100 passengers that will be going from San Diego to San Jose, Costa Rica. So as you can see here, we're really highlighting some of the top destinations over the last several years, and these are programs that are booking very well. So obviously people, after pent-up demand for 3 or 4 years, they're wanting access to these destinations again. So repeating them it gives the opportunity for folks who can't do it in 23 to do it in 24. So now I'll open it up to questions. If anyone has any questions, I'll be glad to address them. And Regina can share with you the remainder of the program.
Regarding the Majestic Great Lakes trip, do you get a day to explore in Cleveland?
Yes, you do. You have a full day in Cleveland. We dock right next to the Rock and Roll Museum, if you know where that is. You can see it from the boat. And then there's actually you don't have to even walk there because there's a fair, they have the trolleys that'll take you there. And then they do a full city tour of Cleveland, and that's included. And again, those trips will have the hop on, hop off features. So you'll have motor coaches that will be taking you to these different destinations. As I recall, we did the Rock and Roll Museum, the aquarium, the cemetery with some of the beautiful ornate mausoleums in the cemetery, and then the art museum, which is very nice in Cleveland as well.
Okay, it says here's another question. I heard Venice is limiting tourists. Is that true?
As of right now, what they're doing is they're building a new port for ships, and so the port is closed. So and I'm speaking of 2023 now, because 24 it probably will be open, but it's hard to tell. But right now we're porting in Trieste, so it's a coach ride. We don't port in Venice, as you note here on the sneak preview at the bottom there. It's Sunset and Cypresses program. We actually port in Trieste, and we motor coach to Venice for the city tour. So it's not they're not cutting access to tourism, they're cutting access to the ships getting close to the city because of the new port they're building, and no access to that right now.
Does anyone else have questions? Okay, actually, I'm going to change up a little bit here. And for those of you that have traveled with Go Next and on any of the Oceania or Victory or American Queen, feel free to unmute yourself and let us know what your experience was like.
Hi, Regina.
Hi.
We went on the Mediterranean cruise in 2018, starting out Rome, Tuscany, Portofino, Monte Carlo, Toulon, France, Barcelona, Valencia, Mahon, Naples. It was wonderful. It was fabulous.
Yeah.
The staff and the team at Go Next are amazing.
Good.
Thank you.
What did you think of the ships?
Loved the ship. Loved it. And I have to tell you, I've watched so many Titanic and Poseidon adventures. I never ever wanted to go cruising in my life. I did it to satisfy a bucket list item of my late husband's. And I tell you, I was blown away, won over. I want to go on many more cruises now.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ruth. Just so you know, Ruth and I used to work together, so it's great seeing you, Ruth. Yep. And let's see, who else is out there? How about you, Bob? Bob Bao, are you interested in saying a few words? I hate to put you on the spot. Maybe you didn't hear me. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have to figure out how to unmute.
Okay.
I've been on 5 Go Next cruises, and they were terrific. And they were the Greek Isles, Panama Canal, the Baltic Republics, Cape Town to Cape Town, and the British Isles. And they were all great. You know, I completely recommend Go Next and Oceania.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Yeah, full disclosure, I worked with Bob as well, so. All right, anyone else have anything you'd like to
We'll
say?
expect the check in the mail, Regina.
Okay, great, thank you. Well, if you don't have any other questions, feel free. I did put in the chat our Go Next dedicated phone line and dedicated website, which lists all of our tours and has all the information out there on each tour. If for any reason you have questions, you can reach out to me, or you can also reach out to Go Next, and they'll be willing to assist you any way you can. Just so you know, for our upcoming travel presentations, we do have next week on the 11th, we're off featuring AHI Travel, one of our longstanding tour operators that we've worked with. That's at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And then the following week on the 18th, we are featuring Poseidon Expeditions. And we are, this year, last year, we offered their North Pole tour. We didn't have any takers, but one day I'm hopeful we will. And next year or this year, I should say, in the fall, we're offering Antarctica with them. So if you haven't signed up for those and are interested, feel free to reach out to me and I can add you to the list. And I thank you all for attending, and please enjoy the rest of your day and go green. And thank you, Mike, very much for.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody. Go green.
Bye-bye.